she said. I didn't think it counted if I didn't enjoy it. When I found out she'd slept with her ex, I said, that makes sense, and dropped it. She thought I'd forgiven her. I packed her things while she was at work. She came home to her boxes in the hallway and a note. It counted. Hey viewers, before we move on to the video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if you want to see more stories like this. Thanks. I bought the house 3 years ago. That's important to mention right up front, not to brag, but because in situations like this, the deed matters more than the I love yous. I own the 4 walls, the roof, and the front door. Sarah just had a key. We had been together for 3 years, living together for 2. On paper, we worked. I'm a structural engineer, logical, steady, maybe a little boring to some people because I like plans and spreadsheets. Sarah was the color in my life. She worked in marketing, loved spontaneity, and was always chasing the next vibe, the next trip, the next emotional high. I provided the stability, she provided the spark. Or at least, that's what I told myself to justify why I paid the mortgage, the utilities, and most of the grocery bills while she spent her paycheck on experiences. I didn't mind carrying the load. I loved her. I thought we were building a future where my stability would eventually balance out her chaos. I was an idiot. The crack in the foundation started with a name, Kyle. Kyle was her ex from college. The toxic one. The one who cheated on her, borrowed money he never paid back, and generally treated her like an accessory. She told me horror stories about him on our 3rd date. She swore she blocked him on everything. But about 2 months ago, she told me he'd reached out to apologize and make amends as part of some therapy program he was doing. I just want to hear him out so I can close that chapter for good, she'd said, looking at me with those wide, trusting eyes. I didn't love it, but I didn't want to be the controlling boyfriend. Fine, I said. Just keep it public and tell me when it's done. She came home that day crying, telling me how pathetic he looked and how glad she was to have a real man like me. I believed her. I thought that was the end of it. It wasn't. It happened on a Tuesday, the most mundane night possible. We were sitting on the couch, watching some generic action movie. Sarah was scrolling through Instagram, her head resting on my shoulder. She got up to go to the kitchen to grab a glass of wine and left her phone face up on the coffee table. I wasn't snooping. I have never snooped. But the screen lit up with a text, and the font was large enough to read from 3 feet away. Kyle, my back is still killing me from that angle, lol. Totally worth it though. Round 2 soon. The air left the room. It felt like the temperature dropped 20 degrees in a single second. I stared at the message, the words burning themselves into my retinas. From that angle. Round 2. Sarah walked back in, humming. She saw me staring at the phone. She saw the notifications still glowing on the screen. The glass of wine didn't drop. She set it down, but her hand was shaking so hard the liquid sloshed over the rim onto my coaster. OP, she started, her voice jumping an octave. It's not what it looks like. I picked up the phone. I didn't unlock it. I just held it up. Kyle. Round 2. Angle. Which part isn't what it looks like, Sarah? She snatched the phone from my hand. I expected tears immediately. I expected begging. I expected I'm sorry. Instead, she got defensive. She crossed her arms, creating a barrier. Okay, fine. I saw him. He kept messaging me, begging to see me, saying he still loved me. I was confused, okay? I needed to know. I stood up. I felt sick, a physical nausea rolling in my gut. You needed to know? You live in my house. You sleep in my bed. And you needed to go fuck your toxic ex to know if you wanted to be here. I didn't want to be with him, she snapped, as if I were the one being unreasonable. I just needed to see if the spark was still there. And you know what? It wasn't. She took a step toward me, her face shifting from defensive to something resembling reassurance. This is where she delivered the line that killed the relationship. It didn't wound the relationship, it decapitated it. OP, listen to me, she said, reaching for my hand. It was awful. He's messy, his apartment smells, and the sex was terrible. I didn't even enjoy it. I stopped him halfway through because I felt gross. I didn't even orgasm. So, it's not like I really cheated. It was just a physical test that failed. It didn't count. I looked at her. I really looked at her. I saw the woman I planned to propose to in the spring, and I realized I was looking at a stranger. A stranger who believed that fidelity was a transaction based on the quality of the orgasm. In her mind, because she had a bad time, she hadn't committed a crime. She viewed herself as the victim of a bad experience, not the perpetrator of a betrayal. You think, I started, my voice dangerously quiet. You think because you didn't get off, it doesn't count. Yes, she said, nodding enthusiastically, thinking I was finally understanding. Exactly. If I had enjoyed it, that would mean I had feelings for him. But I hated it. It just proved how much I love you. It was basically a mistake, like tripping and falling. It doesn't count. Something inside me snapped. But it wasn't a snap of rage. It was the sound of a tether being cut. All the anger, the hurt, the confusion, it just evaporated, replaced by a cold, metallic clarity. There was no point in screaming. There was no point in explaining loyalty or respect or basic human decency to someone who viewed cheating as a customer satisfaction survey. If I fought her, she would just dig in. She would gaslight me all night. She would make this a we problem. I needed to be surgical. I forced my facial muscles to relax. I let my shoulders drop. I looked her in the eye and lied with the same ease she had used to lie to me for weeks. You know what? I said, letting out a long breath. That actually makes sense. Sarah blinked, stunned. It does? Yeah, I said, nodding slowly. I mean, if there was no emotional connection and the physical part was bad, it's just mechanics. It's just biology. I get it. You needed closure, you got it, and now you know. The relief that washed over her face was insulting. She practically collapsed into me, hugging my waist. Oh my God, thank you. I knew you'd understand. You're so logical. That's why I love you. I promise, Kyle is blocked. It's done. I know, I said, patting her hair mechanically. It's done. She pulled back, wiping a tear, smiling that bright, beautiful smile that used to make my day. I'm going to take a shower. I feel gross. Then let's order Thai food. I'm starving. Sounds perfect, I said. She went upstairs, humming again. She thought she had won. She thought she had talked her way out of a murder charge because the gun jammed. I sat back down on the couch in the silence of my house. My house. I listened to the water running in the shower upstairs. I looked at the spot on the coaster where her wine had spilled. I didn't order the Thai food yet. Instead, I pulled out my phone and opened my calendar. I moved my meetings for tomorrow morning. Then I opened my banking app. She thought it didn't count. I stared at the ceiling, feeling absolutely nothing but focus. Tomorrow, she would learn that I keep a very strict scoreboard. The next morning was a masterclass in dissociation. Sarah woke up glowing. She stretched in bed, looking at me with this sickeningly sweet gratitude, like I was a saint who had granted her absolution. She actually made me coffee, which she hadn't done in months. I feel so much lighter, she said, leaning against the counter, sipping from her favorite mug, the one with the cat on it. I was so scared to tell you, but I'm glad I did. It feels like we're starting fresh, you know? No secrets. No secrets, I repeated, forcing a smile. It felt like stretching rubber bands over a skull. Have a good day at work, Sarah. Love you, she said, kissing my cheek. Drive safe. I waited by the window. I watched her Honda pull out of the driveway and turn the corner at the end of the street. I waited another 2 minutes just to be sure she wasn't coming back for a forgotten phone charger. Then, the clock started. It was 8:05 a.m. I had roughly 9 hours before she returned. I didn't rampage. I didn't scream. I didn't throw a vase against the wall. I moved with the efficiency of a contractor fulfilling a work order. The job description was, erase Sarah. Step 1, the perimeter. I called the locksmith I had looked up the night before. I told him it was an emergency rekey. He said he could be there by 10 a.m. I told him I'd pay double if he made it by 9:30. He agreed. Step 2, the finances. I sat down at my desk and opened the laptop. We didn't have a joint checking account. Thank God for my past paranoia, but she was an authorized user on my primary credit card. It was the card she used for groceries, gas, and those experiences she loved so much. Click. Remove user. Confirm. I went through the streaming services. Netflix, Spotify, Hulu. All in my name. Click. Sign out of all devices. Change password. I watched her digital footprint vanish from my accounts one by one. It was clean. Silent. Step 3. The physical extraction. This was the longest part. I went to the garage and grabbed the stack of flat cardboard boxes I'd saved from Amazon deliveries and my last move. I brought them into the living room and started taping them up. Rye-up. Snap. Rye-up. Snap. The sound of the packing tape was the only noise in the house. I started in the bathroom. Her shampoos, her expensive face creams, her 3 different hair straighteners. I didn't throw them. I placed them upright in the boxes. I didn't want her to have a single reason to call me a monster. If I broke her stuff, she became the victim. If I packed it better than professional movers, she was just gone. I moved to the bedroom. I stripped the closet. Her clothes went into boxes labeled wardrobe. Her shoes went into shoes. I found the shoebox under the bed where she kept little mementos, ticket stubs from our first date, a seashell from a beach trip, a dried rose. For a second, my hand hovered. A flash of memory hit me. The day we found that shell. We were happy. Or I thought we were. Then I remembered the text. Round 2. I tossed the box into the carton without looking inside again. By noon, the locksmith had come and gone. The deadbolt was fresh, the mechanism stiff and satisfying. The new keys sat heavy and cold in my pocket. Her key, the one she had on her keychain right now, was essentially a piece of scrap metal. I moved to the living room. I took down the framed photos of us. This was the only petty thing I did. I bought the frames. They were nice mahogany frames. I opened the backs, took the photos of us smiling at weddings and parties, and slid them into a manila envelope. I put the envelope in her box. I put the empty frames back in my drawer. She could keep the memories. I was keeping the hardware. By 3 p.m., the house was unrecognizable. It wasn't empty. My furniture, my books, my art were all still there, but the clutter of her was gone. The throw blankets she liked, the scented candles, the piles of magazines. The space felt larger. Sterile. Quiet. I staged the boxes. I didn't leave them in the rain. I wasn't cruel. I stacked them neatly on the covered front porch, a wall of cardboard blocking the view of the front window. I went back inside and grabbed an envelope. I took the spare key she kept in the kitchen drawer, the one I had just deactivated, and slid it inside. I grabbed a Sharpie and a yellow Post-it note. I wrote 2 words. I didn't sign it. I didn't add a sad face or an angry face. Just the verdict. It counted. I stuck the note to the envelope and taped the envelope to the top box, right at eye level. I walked back inside and closed the heavy front door. I turned the new thumb-turn lock. Click. I checked my watch. 4:30 p.m. She usually got home around 5:15. I went to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, and sat in the living room armchair that faced the front hallway. I didn't turn on the TV. I didn't turn on the lights as the sun began to dip lower, casting long shadows across the floor. I just sat in the silence of my reclaimed home, waiting for the inevitable noise. The silence broke at exactly 5:18 p.m. I heard the familiar hum of her engine in the driveway, then the thud of a car door closing. Footsteps clicked up the concrete path. Then, a pause. I could picture it perfectly. She was standing there, staring at the wall of cardboard on the porch. She was probably tilting her head, confused, wondering if a massive delivery had arrived for me. Then she would see her name on the side of a box. Then she would see the note. The silence outside stretched for a solid 30 seconds. It was the time it took for the brain to process a reality it refused to accept. Then, the doorknob jiggled. It was a casual turn at first, then a harder twist, then a frantic rattling. Scritch scratch. The sound of her key sliding into the lock. She tried to turn it. Nothing. She pulled it out, jammed it back in, and tried again. The new tumblers didn't budge. Up. Her voice was muffled through the heavy wood, tentative and high-pitched. Up. The door stuck. I sat still in the armchair. The room was dim now, the only light coming from the street lamps filtering through the blinds. Bang. 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 Up. Open the door. What is all this stuff? My phone, sitting face up on the coffee table, lit up. Incoming call. Sarah, love. I watched it ring. Then ring again. Then go to voicemail. Incoming call. Sarah, love. I reached over and flipped the phone face down. Outside, the confusion was curdling into panic. Up. I know you're in there. Your car is in the driveway. What is going on? Why are my clothes out here? She started pounding with both fists. It was a rhythmic, desperate drumming that vibrated through the floorboards. This isn't funny. Open the goddamn door. I finally moved. I picked up my phone, opened the smart home app, and tapped the camera feed for the doorbell. The video popped up in crisp HD. She looked deranged. Her mascara was starting to smudge, her hair was flying around in the wind, and she was kicking the bottom of the door. She looked nothing like the smug, relieved woman who had kissed me goodbye 8 hours ago. I pressed the talk button on the app. My voice projected out of the little speaker next to her head, tinny but clear. "Stop kicking the door, Sarah. You're going to scuff the paint." She jumped back, looking around wildly before focusing on the camera lens. Her face twisted into a snarl. "Op, are you insane? Open this door right now. What is this? Is this a joke?" "No joke," I said calmly into the phone mic. "You said the cheating didn't count because you didn't enjoy it. That was your logic." "Yes. And you said you understood," she screamed, gesturing at the camera. "We talked about this. We moved past it." "I lied," I said. "Just like you did." She froze. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish on a dock. "The boxes contain everything you own," I continued. "I checked the closets twice. Your name is off the lease. Well, you were never on it. You're off the Wi-Fi. You're off the credit card. The locks are changed. You don't live here anymore." "You can't do this," she shrieked, the tears finally starting. Real, ugly tears. "We've lived together for 2 years. You can't just evict me. I'll call the cops. This is illegal." "Actually," I said, keeping my voice monotone, "I checked the statutes. In our state, since you never signed a lease and never paid rent, I have the bank statements to prove it. You are legally considered a guest. Guests can be asked to leave at any time. Your property has been returned to you undamaged. You are currently trespassing." "Trespassing?" She choked on the word. "I'm your girlfriend." "Not anymore. Now you're just a woman banging on a stranger's door." "Where am I supposed to go?" she wailed, collapsing against the siding. "OP, please. Baby, please. Let me in. Let's talk about this. I can fix it. I'll do anything. Don't do this to me." "Go to Kyle's," I said. "Maybe you'll enjoy it this time." I disconnected the feed. She pounded for another 20 minutes. She screamed obscenities. She called me a psychopath, a narcissist, a coward. She threw one of the smaller boxes at the door. It bounced harmlessly off the wood. Eventually, the noise stopped. I checked the camera again. She was sitting on the porch steps, crying into her phone. A few minutes later, a beat-up sedan pulled up. It wasn't Kyle. It was her friend Jessica. Jessica got out, looking furious, storming up the path to help Sarah load the boxes into the trunk and back seat. Jessica glared at the camera and flipped the bird. I didn't care. Jessica had cheated on her husband last year. Of course she was on Sarah's side. Birds of a feather. They drove off. The porch was empty. I exhaled. A long, deep breath that felt like I was expelling toxic gas from my lungs. I ordered a pizza. I ate it in the living room. It was the best pizza I had ever tasted. The aftermath trickled in over the next few days. I got texts from mutual friends. Some were angry. "How could you be so cold? She's devastated." I replied to those with a simple screenshot of Kyle's text. "Round too soon." They stopped texting back. I got drunk voicemails from Sarah. First night, "I hate you. You ruined my life." Second night, "I miss you. Please, I'm at my parents' house and my mom is driving me crazy. Just call me." Third night, "Kyle is a dick. I went to see him and he wouldn't even let me inside. He said he didn't want drama. You were right. I'm sorry. Please, OP." I didn't block her number immediately. I wanted the record in case she tried anything legal, but I never replied. Not a single word. My silence was a wall she couldn't climb. I heard through the grapevine what happened with Kyle. It was exactly as I predicted. Sarah showed up at his place that first night, expecting him to be her knight in shining armor since she had sacrificed her relationship for him. Kyle laughed. He told her he was seeing 2 other girls and didn't have room for her boxes. He shut the door in her face. So she ended up back in her childhood bedroom, 30 years old, single, and broke, explaining to her conservative parents why the nice engineer kicked her out. The karma wasn't a lightning bolt. It was a slow, suffocating fog of her own making. And I wasn't there to clear it for her. 6 months passed. They say the best revenge is living well, but I found that the best revenge was actually just peace. My bank account recovered. My blood pressure dropped. I started sleeping through the night without waking up wondering why the person next to me felt distant. I didn't date. I didn't want to. I spent the summer hiking, fixing up the backyard deck that Sarah had always complained about, and reconnecting with friends who had drifted away during the Sarah show. I realized that for 3 years, I had been carrying a backpack full of rocks, convinced it was just normal gravity. When I took it off, I felt like I could fly. I hadn't heard from her in 4 months. The drunk voicemail stopped after I changed my number. I assumed she had moved on or found another safety net to land on. I was wrong. It happened on a Sunday afternoon in October. I was at the upscale grocery store downtown, the one with the overpriced cheese and the good wine selection. I was looking at steaks, debating between ribeye and strip, when I felt a tap on my shoulder. Up. I turned around. It took my brain a second to register her. Sarah looked diminished. That's the only word for it. She was wearing sweatpants that looked slept in and a hoodie that was 2 sizes too big. Her hair, usually perfectly styled, was pulled back in a messy bun that wasn't a fashion statement. She looked tired. Deeply, spiritually tired. In her basket, she had a frozen pizza, a bottle of cheap wine, and a box of tissues. In my basket, I had steaks, asparagus, and a bottle of Cabernet. The visual contrast was brutal. "Sarah," I said. My voice was even. No spike of adrenaline. No anger. Just acknowledgement. I didn't know you shopped here," she stammered, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. She was scanning my face, looking for something. Anger? Love? Regret? "I do," I said. I turned back to the steaks. "You look good," she said softly. "You look happy." "I am." She moved closer, invading my personal space just enough to be uncomfortable. "I miss you, you know. Every day." I didn't answer. I picked up a package of ribeyes and checked the price. "Can we please talk?" she asked, her voice cracking. "Just for 5 minutes? I feel like we left things so unfinished. You just cut me off, OP. It was so cruel." I finally turned to face her fully. "Cruel? I packed your boxes with bubble wrap, Sarah. I returned your property. I followed the law. You threw me away," she hissed, a flash of the old anger rising up before she tamped it down. "Over one mistake. One stupid mistake that I told you about because I trusted you. Doesn't that count for anything? Doesn't the fact that I was honest count?" "You weren't honest," I corrected her mildly. "You were caught. There's a difference." "But I didn't leave you," she pleaded, ignoring the fact. "I stayed. I chose you." Call meant nothing. "I told you, I didn't even enjoy it. It was a physical failure. Why did you have to blow up our entire life over something that didn't even feel good?" There it was. 6 months later, and she was still clinging to the same twisted logic. She genuinely believed that her lack of pleasure made her innocent. I looked at her, and I felt a strange sense of pity. Not sympathy, just pity. She was broken in a way I couldn't fix, and thank God I was no longer trying to. "Sarah," I said, checking my watch. "I have to get going. The game starts in an hour." 3 years, OP, she cried out, causing a woman in the produce section to look over. "We were together for 3 years. We talked about marriage. We had a life. Does none of that matter to you? How can you just stand there and act like I'm a stranger? Did our relationship mean nothing?" I looked her dead in the eyes. I channeled every ounce of the cold, surgical detachment I had summoned the day I packed her boxes. "Honestly," I said, tilting my head as if thinking it over. Looking back at it now, I was stressed all the time. I was paying for everything. I was emotionally drained. I didn't enjoy the relationship. She stared at me, tears welling up. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I didn't enjoy it," I said calmly. "I didn't enjoy the relationship. It was actually pretty terrible for me." She recoiled as if I'd slapped her. "So? What does that mean?" I smiled. It was a small, polite smile. The kind you give a cashier. "Well, using your logic, since I didn't enjoy it, it didn't count." Her mouth fell open. She stood there, frozen, the realization hitting her like a physical blow. I had used her own shield to decapitate her. "So technically," I continued, gripping the handle of my basket, "we never dated. I don't know you." I stepped around her. "Goodbye, stranger." I walked toward the checkout aisle. I didn't look back. I didn't need to see her face to know she was crumbling. I didn't need to see if she was crying. I paid for my steaks. I walked out into the crisp autumn air. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of violet and gold. I got in my car, turned on the radio, and drove home to my quiet, empty, peaceful house. It was the best night of my life. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. What do you think about this story? Share it in the comments.